speaking of our energy crisis, we know it's driven by climate change, well, not by global warming per se, of course, but by climate change policy, by emissions reductions policy. We've spent tens of billions of dollars and we've sent power prices spiralling, undermined our own energy security, and we've trashed thousands of jobs to reduce our emissions by 20% or so over the past decade. And while this has happened, global emissions have continued to rise steeply because most countries are not hurting themselves the way we are. So there's been no environmental benefit, none at all. Yet Labor and the Greens and the Teal independents are all obsessed with Australia doing more. Logic is not their strong suit. Look at Zali Steggall today.
But it's very disingenuous to say you're taking climate change seriously, but not listening to the science. We have to be clear, 43% is a political target, it is not a scientific target. It does not keep us as close to 1.5 degree as possible.
Well, I think she meant disingenuous, but what's her argument? That Australia cutting emissions by 43% or 50% or 60% will lower the global temperature or stop it rising beyond a certain point? This is nonsense. This is not true. This is scientifically and factually absurd. And she must know it, and everyone in Parliament must know it, and everyone in the universities and the government departments and the media must know it, but they all continue with this pantomime.
We need to keep ourselves as close to 1.5 degrees as possible to ensure we have as stable an environment to continue having thriving economies and communities and our way of life. So for that to happen, we need to think of that as the ultimate goal and work backwards on what needs to be done to achieve that.
Well, according to the IPCC and all the climate alarmists and activists and scientists, and according to the logic of the science, you can have this impact only by reducing global emissions. Pretending that reducing Australia's 1.1% and falling share of global emissions, while those global emissions rise, will make any difference is a nonsense. It's deceptive. It's disingenuous. Global emissions are rising steeply, and our political class squabbles over whether Australia's contribution is to trim 30% of 1.1%. or 43% of 1.1%, or even 50% of 1.1%. It's madness. Imagine if they limited our power price rises to 43% of 1%. That would be useful.